My name is Sophie Carter. I'm 28 years old, and until recently, I thought I was in a solid relationship. Not perfect, but stable. The kind where you trust each other enough not to count every word or question every choice. I had been dating my boyfriend Reese for about 14 months. We had routines, inside jokes, shared plans for the future. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just steady, or at least that's what I believed before his past decided it still belonged in our present. Everything shifted 3 weeks after Reese's ex-girlfriend, Garrett, returned from overseas deployment. I didn't meet her, didn't talk to her, but her presence arrived quietly, glowing on Reese's phone screen before I ever heard her name spoken again. One evening, while he was cooking dinner, he asked me to check the time on his phone. When the screen lit up, I froze. The lock screen wasn't us anymore. It was him and Garrett from years ago, kissing on a beach, skin sunlit, smiles unguarded, the kind of photo you don't keep unless you still want to feel something when you see it. I asked him about it as casually as I could. He didn't flinch. He smiled, shrugged, said it was just a memory from a good time, nothing more. He told me that chapter was closed, that he was with me now, and that I was reading too much into a picture. When I asked how he'd feel if I had my ex as my lock screen, he laughed and said he wouldn't mind at all. He said he wasn't insecure, so I nodded. I let it go, outwardly calm, inwardly unsettled. But the feeling did not fade. It sharpened, especially when his friends noticed. At lunch a few days later, one of them pointed at his phone and joked about how good Garrett still looked. Reese laughed along. I smiled, because that's what you do when you don't want to seem like the jealous girlfriend. When someone asked if I was okay with it, Reese squeezed my hand and said I was secure enough to handle a memory. That word stayed with me. Secure. As if discomfort meant weakness. That night, alone with my thoughts, I realized something important. He wasn't asking for understanding. He was demanding permission, and he never once asked whether it hurt me. He only cared that I didn't challenge him. So I made a choice, not out of spite, not even anger, out of curiosity. I wanted to see if the rules he lived by were truly shared, or only applied when they benefited him. I changed my lock screen to a photo from 3 years ago, me and my ex-boyfriend Samuel at his graduation. He was kissing my cheek, both of us smiling, frozen in a moment that no longer existed. I didn't announce it. I didn't explain. I simply waited. The next morning, Reese picked up my phone to set an alarm. The silence that followed was heavy. When he spoke, his voice was sharp, confused, already defensive. He asked what that was. I told him the truth. It was just a memory, a nice photo. The relationship was over. The same words he'd used on me. His face changed in ways I didn't expect. Anger, hurt, something close to panic. He said it was different. He couldn't explain how. He just insisted it was. And in that moment, I understood this wasn't about photos at all. It was about control, about whose feelings mattered, and about how quickly equality becomes a threat when someone has never had to share power before. I went to bed that night knowing something had cracked. And once a crack appears, no matter how small, the collapse is only a matter of time. Reese didn't speak to me much that morning after seeing my lock screen. He moved around the apartment with a stiffness that felt rehearsed, like he was trying to decide whether to punish me with silence or explode into confrontation. I pretended not to notice. I made coffee. I answered emails. I let the image sit there between us, glowing quietly every time my phone lit up, the same way his had for days. By lunch, the tension had fermented into something sharper. We met his friends at a cafe downtown, the usual group, Bethany, Mika, Jade, people I'd laughed with, people who had always claimed they loved how chill I was. Reese took his phone out to show something, then froze when he realized his own screen was still Garrett, while mine was now Samuel. Bethany noticed first. She laughed, a little too loudly, and said it was bold. Jade raised an eyebrow and looked straight at me, then at Reese. Before I could say a word, Reese squeezed my hand and smiled at them, that practiced smile he used when he wanted to control the narrative. He said I was being playful, that I was proving a point, that I was secure, just like him. The word again, secure. I smiled back. I said nothing. Silence, I was learning, made people reveal themselves faster than arguments ever could. That night, he finally confronted me, not with questions, but accusations. He said I was being petty, that I was trying to make him feel bad. I reminded him calmly that he had told me he wouldn't mind, that he had said insecurity wasn't his thing. He snapped that it wasn't the same. When I asked him to explain why, he couldn't. He just repeated it louder, as if volume could substitute for logic. The next day, he escalated. I woke up to see his lock screen had changed, not removed, upgraded. A new photo of Garrett in her dress uniform, recent, polished, unmistakably intentional. He made sure I saw it by asking me to hold his phone while he tied his shoes. He watched my face closely, waiting for a reaction. I didn't give him one. I didn't change mine. That seemed to bother him more than anything else. He wanted a chase. He wanted emotion. Instead, he got consistency. By evening, he was spiraling. He asked why I was being cold. I told him I wasn't. I was just respecting the standard he set. That's when he said something that stuck with me. He said men and women don't experience things the same way. That seeing my ex on my phone meant something deeper, something emotional. I asked him what seeing 4 different photos of his ex-girlfriend meant then. He didn't answer. He just looked away. The story went public on day 4. Reese posted a selfie on his Instagram story, smiling confidently, my phone screen visible in the background with Garrett's photo unmistakable. The caption praised emotional security. His friends hyped him up, called him mature, called him evolved, called him lucky to have a girlfriend who didn't control him. I read every comment without responding. Then I posted my own story. No caption that named him. Just a photo of my phone on the table, Samuel's graduation photo clear, with a simple line about appreciating memories and good photography. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing. Messages from mutual friends asking what was going on. Some joking, some uncomfortable, some warning me it looked messy. Reese came home furious. He accused me of embarrassing him. I repeated his words back to him, word for word. He didn't recognize them when they came from my mouth. That was when he called his mother, put her on speaker without asking me, told her I was being manipulative, told her I was trying to control him. She paused longer than he expected, asked if he still had Garrett as his lock screen. When he said yes, her confusion was audible. She asked why it was different. Reese snapped and hung up on her. The entitlement surfaced fully on day 5. He changed his lock screen again. This time it was a collage. 4 photos. Beach, dinner, hiking. One of them in bed. Nothing explicit, but intimate enough to make the message clear. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so revealing. He wasn't trying to win an argument anymore. He was trying to dominate one. His friend Mika came over that night, clearly briefed. She told me I was being manipulative, that I was playing mind games. I asked her when I had ever asked Reese to change his lock screen. She couldn't answer. She said it was different when women did it. When I asked why, she said men were more visual. I asked if Reese's collage meant nothing then. She said exactly. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just listened. And the more they spoke, the clearer it became. This wasn't about feelings. It was about permission. Reese believed he was entitled to behavior I was expected to tolerate but never mirror. The moment I reflected it back, he saw it as an attack. That night, I realized something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't arguing with a partner anymore. I was witnessing someone unravel because equality felt like disrespect when it wasn't on his terms. And I knew, deep down, that this wasn't going to end quietly. Day 6 hit harder than I expected. I woke up to dozens of notifications before my feet touched the floor. Messages, tags, screenshots. Reese had posted on Facebook at 3 a.m, framing himself as a victim of emotional manipulation, claiming his girlfriend was threatened by his past and was trying to erase his memories. He used words like control, toxicity, red flags. He tagged me. My phone buzzed nonstop with people asking what I'd done, what was going on, why it looked so bad. I didn't respond right away. I took a screenshot of his post, then quietly took a photo of his phone on the nightstand, the collage of Garrett still glowing on the screen. I posted both images with a single line for context. I said this was what I was supposedly threatened by. I added that I had said no problem and simply done the same. I didn't insult him. I didn't explain. I let the images speak. The comment section exploded. Some of his friends doubled down, insisting it wasn't the same. Others went silent. A few started asking uncomfortable questions. and then the situation cracked open completely. Garrett herself commented. She asked why she was still his lock screen 2 years after they broke up. She said it was weird. Reese deleted the entire post within minutes, but it was too late. Screenshots were already everywhere. He came into the bedroom crying, not apologizing, crying about being humiliated. He said I had ruined his reputation. I told him he had done that himself when he made a public accusation instead of having a private conversation. He said I was abusive. I reminded him that he had been doing the exact same thing for days. He said it still wasn't the same. He still couldn't explain why. That afternoon, he involved his father. Jerome called me, calm but clearly confused. I walked him through everything, slowly, without emotion. When I finished, there was a long silence. He finally said it sounded hypocritical. He said he'd talk to Reese. An hour later, Reese was screaming at me, accusing me of turning his own family against him. I asked him if telling the truth was manipulation now. That was when he threw the glass. Not at me, but at the wall. It shattered loudly, pieces scattering across the floor. He said this was what I had driven him to. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I started recording. I said his name, said what had just happened, said why. He demanded I stop. I told him I was documenting for my safety. He grabbed his phone and called the police. He said I was threatening him. When the officer arrived, I showed the video. Calm voice, clear timeline, the shattered glass, both phones, both lock screens. The officer looked tired. He said unless there was a real threat or physical harm, this was a civil matter. He left. After the door closed, Reese locked himself in the bathroom. I could hear him on the phone, crying about gaslighting and emotional violence. I sat on the bed, surrounded by broken glass and clarity. I started packing, slowly, methodically, not angry, just done. I moved in with my friend Adrian that night. Reese spiraled online. He changed all his profile photos to pictures with Garrett. He updated his bio with vague captions about remembering better times. I posted nothing. I said nothing. Silence was louder than anything I could have written. On day 9, he showed up at Adrian's apartment with his friends. They accused me of psychological warfare. Adrian recorded everything from the doorway. I asked them what warfare meant. They said the lock screen. I asked why it was only a problem when I did it. No one answered. They left after Reese tried to push past me, and Adrian threatened to call the police. Day 10 brought another revelation. Reese had messaged Samuel, my ex, accusing him of trying to make Reese jealous and telling him to move on. Samuel sent me the screenshot, laughing. He already knew the story. He told me to do whatever I wanted. So he posted the screenshot publicly, pointing out the double standard. Reese lost control again. He wrote a long post about men weaponizing equality, about emotional labor, about being abused. He included screenshots of our texts, including the one where he said he wouldn't mind if I had my ex as my lock screen. That post disappeared too. His own friends started questioning him, even the ones who had defended him at first. By day 12, he tried a different tactic. He showed up at my work crying, holding both phones. He said he'd changed his lock screen. He begged me to change mine too. I asked him why. He said he'd been wrong. I asked him if that meant he had lied before. He said he hadn't lied. He just didn't think I'd actually do it. There it was, the truth. He never thought I'd hold him to the same standard. He never thought equality applied when it cost him comfort. I walked back into my office. Security escorted him out. And I knew with absolute certainty that there was no going back. Once Reese realized I wasn't coming back, he went into full damage control mode. Not privately, publicly, loudly. He rewrote the story again, this time positioning himself as a survivor of emotional abuse, posting long paragraphs about manipulation disguised as equality, about how women were harmed when men mirrored their behavior instead of understanding it. He used language he'd clearly learned online, phrases about power dynamics and historical context, trying to intellectualize what was, at its core, a simple double standard. What he didn't realize was that people had already seen too much. Screenshots don't forget. His earlier posts, his contradictions, his own words promising he wouldn't mind. Friends who had stayed quiet started pulling away. Some asked him directly why he couldn't tolerate the same thing he demanded I accept. Others just stopped engaging altogether. The silence around him grew heavy. Garrett publicly distanced herself next. She commented on one of his posts asking him to stop using her photos. She said they dated briefly years ago and that it made her uncomfortable. Reese deleted the comment, but not before her new boyfriend chimed in, pointing out how strange it was to still center an ex while claiming to be emotionally mature. Reese tried to spin it as jealousy. It didn't land. Behind the scenes, the truth kept leaking. Bethany reached out to apologize. She admitted Reese had a pattern of flirting while policing others. Mika stayed loyal longer until Reese tried to test her boyfriend's loyalty by hitting on him. He told Mika immediately. That friendship ended fast. One by one, the people who had enabled him realized they had been protecting behavior they wouldn't tolerate themselves. I stayed quiet. I moved forward. I didn't post. I didn't explain. I let the noise burn itself out. When people reached out asking for my side, I told them the truth without embellishment. Calm, factual, consistent. That steadiness mattered more than any clever comeback ever could. Weeks later, Reese tried again. He showed up with gifts, apologies, even a letter. In it, he claimed he understood now, but then spent pages explaining why it was still different when he did it. He hadn't learned accountability. He'd just learned new language to defend entitlement. I kept the letter. Not out of bitterness, out of clarity. The fallout continued without me. Reese struggled to maintain relationships. He matched with people who didn't tolerate his contradictions. He complained online about toxic exes while repeating the same behaviors. The irony never reached him. It rarely does. What stayed with me wasn't the chaos, but the lesson. Equality isn't manipulation. Boundaries aren't control. And the moment someone tells you something doesn't count when you do it, but does when they do, believe them. They're telling you exactly who they are. I changed my lock screen a week after the breakup, not out of pressure, out of choice. I chose peace. I chose clarity. And for the first time in months, my phone lit up without tension attached to it. Some endings are loud, others are quiet. This one was both. The relationship ended the way it had lived its final days, slowly, publicly, and without the self-awareness Reese still insisted he had. In the weeks after I left, more pieces fell into place, things I hadn't even known to question while I was inside the relationship. Messages surfaced showing Reese had been casually texting Garrett throughout our entire time together. Not cheating, not explicitly romantic, but familiar enough to matter. Selfies asking if she liked his haircut, late-night messages reminiscing about places they used to go, soft emotional threads he'd kept alive while telling me she was just a memory. Garrett's new boyfriend eventually had enough. He commented on one of Reese's posts, asking him directly to stop using her photos and to move on. Garrett backed him up publicly, saying their relationship had lasted less than a year and ended 2 years ago. She said it was uncomfortable and unnecessary. Reese tried to spin it as jealousy, but Garrett shut that down too. She asked him, plainly, to stop. That was the moment he finally changed his lock screen, not to something neutral, to a photo of himself. I ran into his mother, Lorraine, weeks later at a coffee shop. She looked tired. She apologized for her son's behavior and admitted she didn't understand why he couldn't see the hypocrisy. She said his therapist was working on it. I wished them both well, and I meant it. Distance has a way of softening anger into understanding without excusing harm. Jerome, his father, still texts me occasionally about basketball games. He never took sides publicly, but privately, he told me I had done the right thing by leaving. That mattered more than he probably realized. As for me, I moved on quietly. I didn't need to announce healing. I didn't need to prove anything. The loudest part of my recovery was how little I needed to say. I started dating again months later, cautiously, with clearer boundaries and sharper instincts. My current boyfriend knows the whole story. He laughed when I told him. His lock screen is his dog. Mine is a photo of a sunrise I took on a solo trip. No ghosts, no tests, no power games. The strangest epilogue came when Reese matched with Adrian on a dating app. Adrian sent me the screenshot. Reese's bio read, "No games, no drama, looking for emotional maturity." We laughed longer than we probably should have. Sometimes irony is the universe's sense of humor. Reese tried twice more to get back together, once with a gift that completely missed the point, once with another letter, longer than the first, explaining how history made his behavior different. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Closure doesn't always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from recognizing patterns you'll never accept again. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this: double standards don't survive reflection. The moment you mirror them, they collapse under their own weight. If someone can't tolerate the behavior they demand from you, the problem isn't equality, it's entitlement. And for the record, keeping your ex as your lock screen while you're in a relationship is strange. No matter who you are, if you wouldn't want it done to you, don't do it to someone else. It really is that simple.